So I know we're all asking the same question. When all this is over, will things be the same?
Worldwide pandemic, international crisis. Those are the kind of words that mess with normal. And I'll be the first to say, this is kind of scary.
Now, I'm not going to act like any of us have the answers. In fact, I think you're kind of crazy if you think otherwise. But one thing I do know, I need something different.
I built my entire world on things that disappeared within a matter of weeks. Don't get me wrong, those things weren't necessarily bad things. In fact, most of them were gifts that God had given me.
But I can't help but feel like I'm in the middle of an identity crisis right now.
So I'm trying to look back on what I've been told is true and constant.
Don't mishear me. I'm not trying to act like being super religious is my thing, but honestly, I don't think it was his either.
Jesus changed everything, and I mean everything.
The religious? They hated him. I mean, they're the ones who put him on the cross.
He spent all his time with a bunch of reckless, messy outsiders. So now we all kind of feel like outsiders. Maybe there's something there.
So I'm looking back at all he did, from creation to the cross. The people that followed him, they didn't really know what was next, but they followed anyway.
Jesus offered peace and life and hope in the midst of persecution, storms, crucifixion, and even pandemics. I'm starting to realize for real that this doesn't really catch him off guard.
And I want to press into him right now because he's the only faithful thing I found in this life. So whatever the future or the new normal looks like, I know he will be there.
And I want to be wherever he is.
Here we go, sing us out. Not for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Come, Holy Spirit, drive us awaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Not for a minute was I forsaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. Come, Holy Spirit, drive us awaken. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. I'm not enough unless you come. Will you meet me here again? 'Cause all I want is all you are. Will you meet me here again?
Yo, what is up, TSC Youth? Hey, Cody Jones, you better wake up right now. Ami, you better wake up. Listen, you people better get fired up and ready. The Lord is in this place. He's here. He's in your living room, wherever you're at. He is there. He has not forsaken us. He is here with us right here in this moment. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes in my life, I am not the greatest at remembering things. I forget things. Shackley, you ever been there? You forget things in life?
Way too much.
Sophie, what about you? I don't know about you guys, but I can forget things at times really, really easily. For example, this past week, I've been taking seminary classes, and I thought my due date was on Saturday, and lo and behold, I was one day away from my due date, and I totally forgot, had to cram. I wrote like 5 papers in 2 days, drank way too many energy drinks, almost passed out, but got it done by the grace of God, right? One time my wife, I love her, shout out to Katie Landreth, but she forgets things. And one time we got in an argument, we got in a fight, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're like, yelling at each other because, we love Jesus, but we're real human beings too. And then I got in my car and I was about to leave in my truck and she was in her car, and then all of a sudden I stopped and I'm parked right behind her. And I signaled to her to come here because I'm about to be really, really sweet. I'm about to apologize. I'm about to hit her with that pickup line again. Everything's gonna be great, right? She jumps out of the car and she forgets to put it in park. And her car just rolls right down the hill, boom, right into my truck. And then she starts crying. I got to call her parents and all kinds of stuff. But we forget things in life so easily, is my point tonight. We forget. And sometimes I think that we forget the faithfulness of God. And sometimes I think that we forget. We get in moments that are different, like the moment we're in right now, where we haven't been able to meet in a long time, in a couple months. We get in moments where there's a sickness, there's a virus that's spreading around. We get in a moment where we don't know what's on the other side, and so easily we begin to forget the God who's been with us all along is the same God who's with us right now. And tonight I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to preach a message that was my very first message here. And it was on a Wednesday night back in A120 in the summer. And I think there was, this is crazy, I remember this, but I think there was 87 kids here that night. And I preached this message, and then after we went to, what's that place? Culver's? Is that what it's called? Which I think Culver's is overrated. But listen, we went to Culver's, we had ice cream, it was a great time. But it was in the book of Hebrews. And if you got your Bible, flip open real quickly to the book of Hebrews chapter 12. And you're going to flip to chapter 12. I'm actually going to start in chapter 11. And in chapter 12, it starts with the word in verse 1, therefore. And whenever there's a therefore in the Bible, you got to ask, what is it there for? And I was even reminded today of the faithfulness of God as I was reminded of this message, and I'm going to preach it differently tonight. But if you look there, therefore, what is it there for? And you go back to chapter 11, the writer is trying to point something out to us. And what the writer begins to do is he begins to go through Scripture, and he begins to look back, and he begins to remind us of people who had great faith in the Bible. Remind us of people who stepped out in faith. One, he's reminding us of their faith, but also he's reminding us of the faithfulness of God when they stepped out in faith. In verse 3, and there's plenty of examples, I'm just going to name a few. He talks, by faith the universe was formed. By faith Abel brought his sacrifice. By faith Noah built the ark. By faith Abraham left his home. By faith Abraham put his son on the altar. And by faith, Joseph spoke of an exodus that would come later. By faith, Moses put his rod out, and the Red Sea was parted in front of him, and the children of Israel walked across on dry land. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell. He's reminding them time and time again, by faith, by faith, by faith. And he's reminding them of the faithfulness of God time and time and time again. You see, I want you to get something tonight. Forgetfulness makes us go backwards. Faithfulness makes us go forward. And right now we're in a moment, we don't know what's on the other side, we don't know what's ahead, and I'm just going to dive in real quickly to one of the examples he named. He said, by faith Moses put his rod out and the Red Sea was parted. Real quickly, let me just recap this for you. The children of Israel, they're in captivity of the Egyptians. God comes and all kinds of stuff happens, but long story short, he releases them from the captivity of the Egyptians, and they begin to be led out. And then all of a sudden they're in a moment where it's the Red Sea in front of them. And they're beginning to think, where are we going to go? How are we going to get through this? And then the Egyptians begin to chase them and come after them. So they got the Egyptian army behind them, the Red Sea in front of them. And they begin to cry out and say, hey, why did you bring us out here, Moses? Why didn't you just leave us to die in Egypt? And they're faced with this moment. What's ahead? What's next? What's going to happen? And some of them, in their forgetfulness, they began to say, why didn't you just leave us back in Egypt? They began to forget how God had rescued them, how God had delivered them, and how God had the power to part the Red Sea in front of them. But then Moses, he begins to tell the people, hey, the Lord's going to do something great today. The Lord's going to rescue us. The Lord's going to deliver us. And then God, through Moses puts his staff out. The Red Sea is parted. And the children of Israel begin to walk across on dry lands. Their faithfulness pushed them forward. And guess what? It pushed them so much forward that they not only went forward through the Red Sea on dry land, on the other side was a promised land. On the other side of their faithfulness of stepping in faith, step after step after step, there was something far greater on the other side, a promised land ahead of them. I want you to know this tonight. We may not know exactly what lays ahead, but we can look back at the faithfulness of God. And I want you to know right here, just think about your life for a moment. Look back. When has God been faithful? When has God moved in your life? When has God done mighty things in your life? That first time you accepted Him and you were on fire for Jesus Christ. Man, at Beach Week, we love Beach Week. And you saw some videos of the baptisms and people being baptized. The same God that was faithful there is the same God who's faithful here. Man, our worship services are different things that we always have. God has been faithful, and He will be faithful ahead of us. He's faithful, so we can step forward in faith, knowing that He will deliver us, that He is leading us, that He is taking us somewhere that we can never imagine or explain on the other side. And we've got to remember His faithfulness and move forward in faith, step after step after step.
I am surrounded by the arms of the Father. I am surrounded by songs of deliverance. We've been liberated from our bondage. We're the sons and the daughters. Let us sing our freedom. Oh, you split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears are drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. Oh, you split the sea so I could walk right through it. My fears were drowned in perfect love. You rescued me so I could stand and sing. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. You sing it out, 'cause I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. Yes, I am a child of God.
And so the question is, what does moving forward in faithfulness look like? Flip open again, Hebrews 12. We talked about 11. Now let's go to 12. Now that we know what that therefore is, therefore, this is what it says in verse 1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endures such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Real quickly, I want to give you three real quick things tonight that I think it looks like for us to step forward in faithfulness, to move forward in faithfulness. Number one, as you just heard that I tell you tonight, let us run. The race is still here. The race is still in front of us. We've got a race to run for Jesus Christ, but let us run together. Several times it says, let us do this, let us do this, let us do this in unison, together as a family of God. Let's run. And here's the truth. During this time we're in right now, we can't physically connect, and we haven't been able to for 2 months. It's getting really, really easy for community to begin to disappear in our lives. And let me just tell you something tonight. Wherever you're at, the devil loves to isolate you. He would love nothing more than to get you alone, get you out of community, get you all by yourself, because then he can really begin to take you down and come after you. The Bible says a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And so right now, the temptation could be to drift out of community, to get out of community, and all of a sudden to be by yourself alone in isolation during this time. But we've got to stay together. We've got to stay in our groups. We've got to still keep chasing after Jesus together on the mission, just like we would if there was 300 of us in this room tonight. And I want to tell you something. We're about to open something tonight called Comeback Season. And it's going to be different. It's something that we've never done before, but this is a different time that we're in. And we're going to ask you to put down 3 friends, just like you would for camp, for Beach Week or Mountain Week. And then we're going to pair you with some of these friends. We're going to guarantee you at least one of these, and we're going to build teams. We're going to put you in groups. And over the summer, we're going to have different teams, like rec teams, just like we would for camp. And we're going to have competitions. We're going to have fun with it. But we're also going to do community. We're going to do life together, and it's going to look different. Sunday's not going to be the same as it was, and Wednesday's not going to be the same as it was. But we're asking you to join in for the summer in these 8 weeks in a different way, with middle school on Tuesdays and high schools on Thursday with this community. So sign up, get a part of that. Don't let isolation creep in. Instead, choose to be a part of a godly community and stay with us on this journey. Number 2 that I'd give you as we read, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. Man, everything's changed. Everything is just flipped upside down, but one thing has not, Jesus. Jesus is still on the throne. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. And we can fix our eyes on him. We can run after him. We can chase after the things of God. And we can keep running with our eyes on Jesus. You remember the story of Peter? All of a sudden, he's out on the boat. He looks out. He thinks it's a ghost, and it's Jesus walking on the water, and there's a storm going on. And then he gets out, and he begins to walk on the water for a moment. He's doing something that no one's ever done before. And then all of a sudden, the scripture says he gets distracted by the wind and the waves, and he begins to sink. And Jesus grabs a hold of him and pulls him up. And what made him sink was him taking his eyes off Jesus and getting distracted by the wind and the waves. During this time, keep your eyes on Jesus. Don't get distracted by the craziness around you. Don't get distracted by a sickness. Don't get distracted by the world moving in all kinds of different ways. Keep your eyes on what never changes, and keep your eyes fixed on Jesus. And as a youth ministry, let's keep our eyes on Jesus and run the race that's in front of us. The way we keep running is by number 2, keeping our eyes on Jesus. That's how you keep running. And then lastly, let me give you this, number 3. Let us not grow weary and lose heart. I don't know where you've been at during this time. For me, I've had a series of emotions. Some days I'm excited and I'm thinking, man, it's going to be all right. I'm going to be optimistic. You know what? I can't be around people, so I'm going to grab my fishing pole and I'm going to go to the pond and I'm going to fish. And then the next day, I'm like depressed. I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. My life is over. Like, I can't even see anybody. I got to get on Zoom 24/7 and I'm about to break it because I don't even know how to work technology. I struggle with Facebook. What is happening? And then the next day, I'm just angry. I'm like, I'm just mad at the world. If you walked up to me, I'd just punch you in the face, right? All over the place. And you know what can begin to happen to us? We can begin to lose heart. We can begin to grow weary. We can begin to think, man, what is even the point? Why should I keep running the race? Why should I keep my eyes fixed on Jesus? Why should I even be a part of this? There's so much pain and sickness and craziness. But don't miss verse 3, what it says at the beginning. Consider him who endured such opposition, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Consider him who endured such opposition, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. What's that talking about? Consider Jesus, who was beaten, who was mocked, who was ridiculed, who had a crown of thorns put on his head, who was forced to carry his own cross, and then was crucified on the cross for us. Consider him, of what he went through for you, the pain, the suffering, the embarrassment, the shame. And then consider how he got up from the grave 3 days later and defeated death, sin, shame, and darkness forever. Listen, here's the great thing about all this. When we think about what we're going through right now, it's really nothing compared to what Jesus faced. A couple of months of not meeting together is really nothing compared to all that Jesus was faced with, all that was thrown at Jesus. And so listen, we can keep our eyes fixed on Jesus. We can keep running after Jesus. We can not grow weary and lose heart because we're not facing anything near what Jesus faced. And not only that, but we've got that Jesus who lives inside of us to spur us on, to keep going, to keep running after him, to run the race that he has set before us. You know, back in the first time I told you that I came here, I preached this message. Again, 87 people in A120. It was a summer night. And, you know, this night I did different. I preached about laying down sin and running after Jesus. And I remember that night people came up and they laid down sins in their life and cards in their life. And I still have the cards in my office, in my desk. But as I look back to that moment, I just remember, and we went to Culver's after, and I met so many of you and hung out. And I just remember thinking, man, God's going to do great things. God's going to do mighty things, and he has. But here's the best news about it all. I believe the greatest days are ahead of us. I believe the greatest days are in front of us. God has been faithful, and he's going to be faithful forevermore. He's going to do things that we can never imagine or explain. And guess what? We're going to be here a year from now, and we're going to look back on the faithfulness of God and say, God carried us through this coronavirus. He carried us through this time where we couldn't meet physically. He showed us the value of true worship. He showed us the value of really meeting together. He showed us the value of meeting with other believers. He showed us the value of being the church of Jesus Christ. And when we came back stronger than we ever could or we ever would. And it was comeback season. And the comeback king is Jesus Christ himself. Here's the great thing about Jesus Christ. Just when everything seems over, just when everything seems dead, he's in the grave for 3 days. Nobody knows what's going on. They think darkness has won. They think the devil has won. 3 days later, woo! I'm about to take off running up in here. The greatest comeback ever happened. Jesus got up out of the grave and he defeated it all, and everybody thought it was over. And right now people might be saying it's over. And you know what I choose to do? I choose to say by faith, because God has been faithful, TSC Youth, and the work of God moving here is just getting started. The work of him moving at Independence and Summit and Spring Hill and Heritage and Thompson Station and Spring Station and Grace Christian Academy and Homeschools and Page and any other school I didn't name, it's just getting started. Because we're going to come back stronger than we've ever been before. And God's going to do mighty things. He's a God who can take a grave and he can turn it into a garden. Something dead and make it beautiful. We need your help during this time. Man, join us in this comeback season. And let's declare how he comes back and brings dead things to life.
I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise, treasures of fame I never know. But then you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Come on, sing us out. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. I'm not afraid to show you my weakness. God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. There's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Come on. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. He's turning my grave. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into harmony. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. There's nothing. Oh, there's nothing better than you. No, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Come on, sing it out. There's nothing. Lord, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Come on. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can.
Woo! I tell you what, I'm about ready to run through a wall right now, baby. It's comeback season. Hey, here's what we need you to do. Right now, there's a link right here that you can click on, that you can go to. We've got sign up for groups for comeback season, and we've got sign ups for our comeback conference the last 3 days of July, leading into that weekend of August, first weekend of August. Sign up right now. If you sign up for both, right now you get a free comeback season t-shirt that'll be sent your way. So do it right now. We'll see you guys soon. We love you. Remember, he's doing a new thing. It's comeback season. We're going to come back stronger than we ever have, and God's going to do a mighty work. See you guys soon.